Announcement executive sessions held 12/14/21 for athletic personnel issues and 1/18/22 for personal interviews. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the 12/6/21 reorganization, work session, and regular monthly meeting. Do I hear such a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Walsh, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment?
Yeah, I have something to bring up here. I'm not sure if I'm doing this in the right spot or not. But I'd like to see about maybe us starting a citizen advisory committee. It'd be a group of people throughout the community who get together. We would pick a president. It's in the, in our policy manual under section 9DD, and the code is 905. If anybody'd like to look it up.
What did you call that again?
It's the Citizen Advisory Committee. It pretty much, helps out with, the purpose on here states is citizen advisory committees can be useful in keeping the board and administration informed with regard to community opinion and in representing the community in the study of specific school issues. So kind of like what was going on here with the kids in the classrooms and all that. Maybe, we had something like that would help out with some of that. That's something we could maybe vote on at the next meeting.
We have to vote on it? Start a committee?
Typically, I'd have to pull up that board policy. You said it's 905.
If the code is 905, section is 9DD, community.
Sometimes the board policies reference that the committees, if it's like an ad hoc committee, it is created and the appointees are put on by the board president, and that's why I'm not sure in this situation it would follow whatever's in the board policy.
I have a printout over here if you want to look at this.
Is it members of the community and the board, or just?
Members of the community. They come in and advise the board on what's going on in the community. Not that they would vote on the board, but
During regular board meetings, or does that special meeting just to get together? With
I think they could have special meetings, but they have to let it known to the public.
So, I mean, it's up to the board in terms of what the, what the preference is. The way this reads to me is that the committees are created with a specific goal in mind, because it references coming up with deadlines for a preliminary and a final report, so the committee will be tasked with a particular subject to assess. And the superintendent and the board president would be ex officio members of the advisory committee, and it would be comprised of resident staff members and students. When I've seen this done in other places, it's been for example, if there's gonna be a building project or something like that, where they're getting input from a number of groups in terms of what to how to plan, thank you, Rick. But, it's up to the board. I would just suggest that if it's created, there be a specific purpose in mind, so that you can follow through with the spirit and intent of that policy, which is to come up with a preliminary deadline for a report and then a final deadline.
Yeah, it's fine with me if somebody wants to do that. You wanna lead that charge?
Well, I would think we would appoint somebody from the community first. But I know there's people in the community that express their concerns with some of this stuff, so they'd be, willing to.
So, and again, it's up to the board. My suggestion would be for the board to decide what the function of it is before appointing anybody to a committee, because you need to know what the goal.
All right, how about the health and safety standards that, you know, all these issues that come around? I mean, just to see how the rest of the community feels about all, you know, anything going on with, health department and all that for the state, and the mandates and the regulations that the school has to go through. Like, couldn't we, you know, get the community's opinion on some of this stuff? On how everything's being handled and, you know, whatnot.
I don't see the difference between that committee and the public comment session, why they can't bring it in, just like she did tonight.
Public comment, they don't get answers. They comment and they ask a question and we stare at them.
But wouldn't that be the same thing with this
No,
committee?
I think
mean,
the
if
committee,
they
you'd
tell
actually,
before,
if
we
they
don't have,
ask, just like the asbestos, they asked the question, they got an answer
Yeah.
7 weeks ago, and there wouldn't have been the report and the this and the that. I think a place where people come and meet with a couple board members, maybe a couple staff members, just ask a question and get an answer, instead of.
Like, yeah, like, hey, we're concerned
Cut down
about
on
this.
meeting time too. You know, if they got their questions answered, have a little dialogue instead of, you know, do we have asbestos? Maybe not, you know. I think that's some of the issues we've had with community at the board meetings, not getting an answer. You know, they need a place to go to get it.
I don't
And
disagree.
this isn't the, what we're told, this isn't the proper forum. Public comment is, they comment, we listen.
Yeah, I would think it would have to be a separate meeting night
Oh, yeah.
with a small group of the
You
board.
wouldn't have to do it, I don't think every month,
Right.
but a small group of,
Yeah, and then if something comes
small
up,
group
I
of
mean,
community members, couple board members, administrator, went in and asked.
So do we have to put that to a vote?
Yeah, the way
We have to create a committee first.
yes, yeah.
So
I mean,
before next month, we need to know who's on this committee.
I would nominate Casey Brink to be the chair of the committee for the community. If that would matter.
Still think we need to have some sort of plan, yeah. Before we just vote on it, right?
I mean, the way the policy reads is there's a function for the committee, a group is established, you know, the board has to determine what the function is, who's going to be part of it, and what the, you know, there's a beginning point and end point. So my thought is, now that the suggestion has come up, that you give it some thought and maybe put it on as an agenda item for next month, if the board is interested in it.
So the committee has to have a specific agenda and subject that they want to address, not just a monthly grape session is what.
That's the, I mean, do you wanna read, do you want me to read it, the policy? Sorry, or give it to him?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna read it.
I'll read it aloud so everybody can hear it. So the purpose, the citizens advisory committees can be useful in keeping the board and administration informed with regard to community opinion and in representing the community in the study of specific school issues. The authority, in creating an advisory committee, the board shall define the committee assignment and shall, 1, appoint residents who are interested and can make some special contribution to the committee's function. 2, approve appointments of residents, staff members, and or students recommended by the superintendent. 3, appoint a chairperson. 4, appoint a president and the superintendent as ex officio members of the all advisory committees. In charging a new advisory committee, the board shall set a date for a preliminary and final report. Recommendations of advisory committee shall not reduce the responsibility of the board, but shall be free to accept or reject the recommendations. Meetings of advisory committee are not regular meetings of the board and shall be open to the public only upon invitation of the committee.
I just think if the community had somewhere to go, if there was a group of people in the community that weren't on the school board, that they could go to and discuss what's going on, what they have going on with special needs or with whatever, it could change month to month. And then it wouldn't be a big, you know, everybody up here yelling at the board meetings, you know, it'd be a little bit more, they would feel a little bit more in tune to what everybody else is coming from.
So I don't wanna speak out of turn, some places have created, I've seen, the district close by, like a coffee and conversation or something to that, equivalent where people are given the opportunity to come in, but it's not in this format, and the conversation isn't in public comment.
And then what did they do with that?
Well, in that format, the conversation is typically with a member of the administrative team. And then, what the administrative team does with that information is, is up to them, really. If they make changes within the school day or take information back to the board with suggestions. But that's a different format than what you're referring to in terms of like an official advisory committee.
I just think we need a better plan for like the February meeting to look at it. I mean, I'm not opposed to it,
Yeah, I just, a lot of people in the community, they either can't come to these meetings and they have problems and I think it'd be a way for them to vent without it getting, they talked to a couple people, and Casey's well known throughout the community, and like a lot of people would go to her and talk to her about things that, they might not be able to say or know when to say at one of these board meetings. And I think it's difficult for them and frustrating. And if it could be easier for them, maybe it'd be a little more, easier on the board.
come up with a plan for February and we'll look at it.
All right.
I think we were in public comment, weren't we? Anything else in public? I forgot we were.
Yeah, I actually have something else. Back from the meeting in September 7th, the board voted to, I have the minutes and everything here. And the personnel commit, the motion by Dr. Mulholland to authorize the administration to make changes to the safety plan to be consistent with orders from the state and federal government. And it was seconded by Rick Cree, and all voted yay. But the problem was, you guys voted on this, well, minus Mr. Wallstrom, Ms. Sinclair, but it wasn't in the agenda, and it couldn't have been an emergency because it wasn't amended publicly after that. So the whole vote violates the Sunshine Act. Am I not seeing that right? There was a vote, and it wasn't amended in the agenda, it wasn't on the agenda to begin with. And this was the meeting that we were told that you're not allowed to take a vote or anything, the board can't vote unless it's on the agenda or unless there was an emergency amendment to the agenda, and neither one of those things were done. And I have the minutes and I have the agendas from the meetings, so the board voted and that vote should be null and void.
What was that vote for? Again, tell me,
The vote was
to do what?
to authorize the administration to make changes to the safety plan to be consistent with orders from the state and federal government.
My legal opinion is that the vote, was valid then and is valid now.
How was it
No.
valid if it wasn't in the agenda and it was voted on? And the agenda wasn't amended? You told me that at the meeting, I have it on video.
There was discussion that evening in public session after everybody left. Now, in terms of,
But it wasn't amended on the agenda, so it violated the Sunshine Law Act. Because it was never told to the public within the 24-hour period that there was an actual vote on it. And this is after we were told numerous times by yourself and Dr. Mahalan that it was against the sunshine law to vote on anything if it wasn't in the agenda.
Except if there's an emergency, and I think that's an
And
emergency.
it wasn't amended in the agenda, even if it was an emergency. I just talked to the lawyer from PSBA, and she told me that it looks like it was against the sunshine law.
Who did you speak with?
My lawyer.
But, I mean, which one from PSBA?
I don't have her name with me right now.
I mean, if the board has any specific questions for me about that evening in terms of giving legal advice now or referring back to the legal advice, because I think there were 6 people there that night, if I'm not mistaken, my recommendation would be to do that in executive session.
Well, what about this vote being not under the right pretense of the law?
Well, in December, we gave the administration permission to make changes based on state laws and anyhow change.
But the administration isn't supposed to make policies, the board is.
Well, I believe if you go back to the August vote, when the safety plan was approved, the August vote gave them authority to incorporate any state or federal orders that come out or agency orders that come out after the board meeting. So that was at the August board meeting.
Well, you still voted in September to follow those recommendations, and you didn't amend the agenda. Like, all I'm asking is for a revote because you didn't follow the right procedure.
But we didn't change anything? We voted on it in August.
You voted on the motion in August authorized the administration to make changes to the health and safety plan. Motion by Richard Cree to approve and update the health and safety plan and to authorize the superintendent to adjust the health and safety protocols based on virus levels in the community, updated guidance from state or federal agencies or state or federal orders. And it was seconded and all in favor. So it was a unanimous vote. That was August 17th, 2021.
Right, so it didn't really, even if we did vote in September, it didn't change.
Well, you're still just trying to cover the fact that you didn't do it by what the book says. I'm just saying we all gotta be here, but I expect it to be done right, especially when I'm getting called out at that meeting before I sat here on this board about not doing things the right way, and then after everybody left that night, there was a vote, and it wasn't in public record. And that is against the sunshine law.
I mean, like I said, I gave the opinion to you this evening that I don't believe it was a violation of the sunshine law. If there are any other specific questions, my suggestion is that you ask them, the board ask them in executive session. And the other thing I want to note is that the Sunshine Act the revisions to the Sunshine Act went into effect a few days before that board meeting. But there was discussion that night after. The meeting was open to the public. It was the meeting that was in the auditorium.
I know, I was here, I spoke at it, you and Dr. Mahalan both told me about the Sunshine Law Act. And then you guys proceeded to violate it right after you got done telling everybody that was in the audience that night not to. That you couldn't have a vote because of the Sunshine Law Act. So be it as it may, that's what happened that night. I have the minutes and the agenda.
There's not much we can do about it now.
Well, I'd like to at least maybe revisit it at the next meeting.
Okay, put it on the
Put it
agenda.
on the agenda.
Put the vote back on the agenda for next meeting. Anything else, public comment? Okay, athletics, Mr. Wilson.
Make a motion to accept items 1 and 2 as read in the work session.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Yep.
Second. Mr. Kunichak. All questions, comments? All in favor, aye? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve items 1 through 8 as previously read in the work session. Questions? We have a second?
Second.
Second by Theo. All in favor, aye? Opposed? Building and grounds.
Motion to accept A, B, and C is mentioned in the work session.
Questions? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Theo. All in favor, aye? Opposed? Discipline curriculum.
Motion to approve as previously read in the work session, numbers 1, A, B, C, number 2, number 3, number 4, table number 5, and approve number 6 and 7 as previously read.
Questions? Have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gates. All in favor, aye? Opposed? Finance.
Motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as previously read in the work session.
Questions? Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Menser. All in favor, aye? Opposed? I believe that is all, unless anyone has anything else. We're gonna go into executive session for brief. Mr. Walton has something to tell us.
I think we need a motion.
And legal. And motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, do I have a second? Mr. Walton, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you.